name's Joshua Jahowski, and this is my 1969 Ford F100. It is known as the LSF100 because it's LS swapped. So I purchased this truck 6 years ago. I bought it from my father-in-law. It was just a truck he kind of had sitting around, and I wanted a project at the time, not with any real intentions of going this far with it. But he wasn't using it, and he wanted to get rid of it, and I was the guy to buy it. So when I first bought the truck, it was basically just your typical run-of-the-mill kind of beat-up farm truck. My father-in-law was the second owner of it. It had, I don't know, 69,000 miles or something. The whole front was kind of crushed. One of his neighbors had backed into it, kind of did a hit-and-run type of deal, and the bed was fairly straight, but it wasn't necessarily exactly what I wanted. So I decided to start making some changes to it. So I never really had any real intentions with the truck for it to be where it is today. I knew that it needed a new motor. The motor that was in it was tired. It smoked a lot. And so I did originally keep the truck Ford powered. I put a 460 and a C6 in it. But I kind of just intended on just kind of beating on it the way it was and just kind of having some fun. I'm usually the kind of guy that never really finishes a project. I had a 64 C10 and I had a small block Chevy swapped S10, and I pretty much sold them before they were completely finished. I always liked the build more than anything, and so I never intended on getting to this point or even really racing, but this is kind of where we ended up with it. So getting involved with autocross kind of started here at LS Fest. I had brought the truck down here kind of off a fresh build. Had just had it tuned, showed it at the car show. The truck had already been Crown Vic swapped. At the time I was still leaf sprung, and I had an LSA and a 5.3 in it. And I brought it down here just to kind of show off, check things out, see what was going on, and watched the autocross and decided I wanted to do that. And so that was in 2018. Never did race at that time. We just showed it off, had some pretty good input, good impressions. And then in 2019 we came back with it, and at that time I had switched to like Viking coilovers and some other suspension mods. Still was leaf sprung. I had better wheels, better tires on it, and we did basically our first autocross event, and I just loved it, and I was kind of hooked after that. And you know, I'm not the best driver, I'm still learning, but it's fun for me, and even if I don't win, it's not even a big deal. Like, I'm just out here to have fun. The autocrossing community is awesome to deal with. We have a lot of fun just even bantering back and forth in the pits, and so just getting to meet everybody, super fun deal. Just being able to get out there and tear up the trucks is just a bonus for it. So there was no real influences to building this truck the way it is now. However, I remember kind of growing up and seeing in the magazines Rob Phillips's truck with the C10R. And I always just loved that truck. I thought it was just a real rad ride, and trucks weren't really a big thing when he was doing what he was doing with that truck, and showing how things really are or can be with trucks. And so once I kind of figured out I liked doing the autocross thing, I started talking to some different companies that did suspension stuff for these trucks, and I started talking to Jeff with Munssey Speed, and things started kind of slowly coming together with sponsors. And you know, now I've got Munssey Speed sponsors and helps out with carbon fiber, and I've got Andrew Peterson with F100performance.com. He's got the big brake kit, and he's got me into all the Viking coilovers all the way around. And we got Kyle with Outcast Auto Works. He stepped on board, and he's got me hooked up with his whole suspension package that he makes for these. And it just kind of evolved unintentionally, and just kind of went to a place that I never thought it would go. I would never have thought that I would still have the truck. Again, I like the build more than anything, but this truck has just kind of stuck with me, and I won't ever get rid of it. The very first time we came out here and raced at LS Fest, I figured out that I needed way better suspension, and so I got with Andrew Peterson. I had already had his double adjustable Viking coilover setup up front, and then I think I was on Ride Tech shocks in the rear. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was, just single adjustable shocks out back on just the leaf springs. And I started talking to Kyle with Outcast even more, and we put together the suspension package that I ended up using. And then same thing with brakes. Andrew started developing a budget big brake kit for these that uses a GT500 front rotor and Willwood caliper, and everything just kind of evolved from there. When it came down to doing the motor in the truck, like originally when I got the truck, the 360 was wiped out on it, and I knew I didn't want another 360 or the 3-speed that was in it, so I'd originally put a 460 and a C6 in it with some like dove heads and a cam and some other stuff. I drove that around for like a year. It was okay. I mean, it had all the torque. I just wasn't a fan of non-fuel injected. At the time I was doing LS swaps in a bunch of different stuff, friends' vehicles, customer vehicles, and so I just decided it was time for me to LS swap it. So when I LS swapped it, I got a Crown Vic cross member and cut out basically the stock frame like anybody would have to do with a Crown Vic cross member in these, and put just a stock 5.3 in it to begin with. And before I even got that running, I decided that I wanted to go turbo. And so I just did really a super budget build, VS Racing, wastegate, VS Racing, blow-off valve, GT45 turbo, nothing super spectacular. Had some tuning issues, broke some ring lands on the first motor, kind of copped it up to, it was a junkyard motor, that was what it was. So I built another motor, brand new pistons, brand new rods, brand new everything, made sure the rings were gapped real good, put it in, motor lasted 20 miles before it broke ring lands again. And so the second go around, the ring lands went through the turbo and just wiped the turbo out. And so I was kind of at a crossroads of what do I do. I knew obviously had to replace the turbo. Decided that at the time you could get an LSA supercharger for like $3,000 for a whole kit. Maybe $3,500. They've gone up significantly since then. That was roughly, I don't know, 4 years ago that I did that. And so I bought a brand new block from Summit Racing and literally just built a brand new motor and put that in the truck, had it tuned, used it for 2 years, and then the truck ended up on scales for a Good Guys event, and I found out the truck was way heavier than I intended. The supercharger weighed a lot, the iron block obviously weighed a lot, 8 gallons of fluid, the supercharger, the extra heat exchanger, all that stuff just added up. And so I decided to sell the LSA supercharger. I sold the 5.3, the built 5.3, and bought an L92 truck motor, 6.2, and I had the machine shop, balance everything. I put Summit rods and pistons in it, got it all cleaned up. I did SPS ported cylinder heads, the stock cylinder heads that came with the motor, with the larger Freya valves. Holley high ram, ID850 injectors. The motor's like 11.6 to 1 compression. I used Speed Engineering headers from a C10. They're 1 7/8 headers. They fit these trucks like a dream. And I ended up with I think an ICT billet front drive setup on it. And ended up overall dropping about 450 pounds out of the truck. It went from 3,990 pounds to 3,520 pounds. And so the weight savings was awesome, and the truck makes, or should make, around the same power as the LSA. You know, compared to similar builds to the LS3 guys that are building the same motors, it should do around 500 to the tire. I've never had it dynoed, but based on cam, airflow, stuff like that, cubic inches, it should be around 500. Someday, hopefully here at this event, I'll get it dynoed and we'll see what it actually makes. The steering pump is actually just a stock, I think it's an LS2 power steering pump. I've got a big trans cooler on it, basically using it as a power steering cooler with a 500 CFM Durali power cooling fan on it. The steering rack is just stock Crown Vic for right now. I'm actually looking into, Andrews Tuning and Performance makes a bracket kit to adapt a Mustang electric rack to it. And so that's something I'm looking into going to here probably this fall, and get rid of basically one extra fluid system and less rotational mass for the motor. We'll see how it goes. The 3-speed transmission that was originally in it obviously went away with the 360 that was in it. I'd originally gone to that 460 with a C6, and once I got rid of all that, I found a junkyard 4L80E for 250 bucks. Back home they're super cheap because they're not 4-wheel drive, they're 2-wheel drive, and nobody really in Montana buys 2-wheel drive transmissions. So it is still the same transmission. I took it apart, did some internal mods, dual fed the direct drums, did basically free shift kit, and put it back together with what now is a 3800 stall converter. I had a 3200 stall in it until I did this motor, and it just, the power band wanted more converter. So I've never had any issues out of this transmission. I've had it for, I don't know, 5 years now, I think, and I couldn't really ask it to do any more. You know, I'm kind of expecting at some point to have to do a transmission, but it hasn't given me any hiccups or headaches, so it's a 4L80 for you. The front suspension is out of a 2011 Ford Crown Vic. I currently have Viking triple adjustable coilovers in it that I got from Andrews Tuning Performance. I'm also using Kyle with Outcast AutoWorks. I've got his upper control arms, his rear control arm mounts that allow basically infinite caster adjustment. Also using Kyle's upper frame clamps for the Crown Vic to F100 swap. And then the rear suspension is Kyle's 4-link kit with Viking's triple adjustable coilovers and kind of a custom panhard bar that I set up. The one Kyle normally sells, most guys don't race with, and so I had something that I designed that was just way more adjustable, so I could change roll center and stuff like that. The front brakes are another item from Andrew's Tuning Performance. It uses a GT500, just a factory GT500 rotor. Obviously you can buy whatever you want. They make carbon rotors and drilled and slotted, whatever suits your fancy. And then it just has an adapter bracket for a radial mounted Wilwood 6-piston caliper, and it all bolts on. The rotor, all you really have to do is zip out the center bore just a little bit to get it to fit over the hub diameter. I know you can buy machined rotors from him already, or I just roto zipped mine out. Like, it's literally that close that a roto zip, just a couple swipes it's done. The rear brakes is just a basic kit from Wilwood. I'm using a Explorer 8.8 rear axle, and it uses the same big bearing housing end as the Ford 9-inch, which a lot of people, they think the 8.8 and they kind of think Mustang, and the Mustang uses a totally different bearing setup. And since the Explorer uses the big bearing end like the 9-inch, you can use a 9-inch brake kit on these. And so it's just an off-the-shelf, like $700 brake kit. It's like, I think, 12.8 inches. Nothing super special, but the rear of this truck's not super heavy either, so I don't need a big brake back there. The wheels and tires that are on the truck are Weld S71s. They are 18 by 10 on all four corners. The fronts are a 6.2 back spacing, and because of the Explorer rear axle, it's, I think, 4 inches overall narrower than the factory 9-inch. Required a custom wheel or 2 run wheel spacers, which I did not want to do. So I have a 4-inch back spacing out back, which is pretty much what you need on an 18 by 10 wheel, or any 10-inch wide wheel with an Explorer axle for that matter. The tires are a 295/40/18 the Falcon 660 RT, and they're an awesome tire compared to the 615s. They're way grippier. So this is the factory color for the truck. It's Skyview Blue. I believe it's like paint code E. I had toyed around with painting the truck a different color, like a white or black or kind of one of the basic colors. However, I decided to paint the firewall before I put the motor in, and I liked the color so much when it was fresh, I decided to keep it, and it was definitely the right choice for this truck. This body style looks really good with this blue. Originally, so I converted the truck from long bed to short bed, so the bed that I got was completely rust-free bed. Most of the body work had been done, but I actually did all the body and paint work on the truck overall. I originally had blue fenders on it. Everything was painted. It was kind of, your typical pretty little blue show truck, not real super racy. And then I got hooked up with Munssey Speed, and he started making, all the carbon fiber for these things. And so I've got his carbon fiber front bumper, delete, carbon fiber fenders, carbon fiber headlight bezels, and then the heat extractors that are on the truck is actually something that I designed and built and then sent him a set that he now produces for everybody. We also did the same thing on the inside. There's a lower dash bezel that's also made in carbon fiber that is basically houses all the AC vents, and that is something also designed by me that I sent to him, and he made a couple changes too. He's actually since redesigned it a little bit just to make it bigger for like some of the resto mod vents are starting to get pretty big. And so also got his carbon fiber, gauge cluster bezel, and pretty much everything Jeff makes in carbon fiber is on this truck. I don't think there's anything in the catalog that we don't have. The interior has gone through a bunch of different renditions. It's something I just couldn't settle myself on, especially once I started racing, trying to find the right seat. It's obviously I'm a pretty big guy, so finding a seat that I fit in comfortably that also holds me into where I need to be is kind of tough. So I started off with, I think I had some Corbeau like suspension seats. I couldn't get them low enough or far enough back. I'm also pretty tall, so to get a non-weird pedal angle that wasn't straining my calf muscles was difficult. I had the Corbeaus, and then I went to a Snowden custom seat, a bench seat that I had custom bolster and stuff like that. And then I got rid of that finally and went to Kirky makes some big boy seats, and so I got these Kirkys that work real well. I made some new seat brackets for them, and then built a harness bar that sits obviously behind the seats and then sandwiches in with the back of the cab. The dash, as we kind of talked about earlier, carbon fiber everything. I'm using a Holley Pro Dash for gauges. I've Also got the door panels are recovered with just some, football colored vinyl. Dash has been recovered to match. Brand new carpet, and then just some 5-point harnesses. Nothing super duper special. It works for what I need it to do. So I also had designed the rear spoiler for this truck. Originally I had it made out of aluminum, and as well as the front splitter, I also designed that. And then I had Munssey Speed actually just remade the splitter, or the spoiler rather, out of carbon fiber for me. More so just to match the rest of the truck. It definitely wasn't a weight issue, just to kind of bring some carbon fiber to the rear of the truck. I also have APR carbon fiber mirrors on the truck, as well as all the Cerakote and stuff done in the engine bay. That's all done by me. I did all that stuff at home. As I built my motor. I built the whole truck in the garage pretty much by myself. I mean, I had a hand here and there, but as far as all the body work goes, all the body fitment, all the paint work, all that stuff's been done by me in my little 1,000 square foot garage. So the way the truck currently looks and performs was all built 2019, kind of going into 2020, mostly 2019. I was trying to get it ready for LS Fest, knowing that it's typically in April or May. Obviously, COVID kind of killed that, so the truck was ready to go. Never really had a chance to race it. It took, 2019, basically the truck was completely cab off, frame and everything. I replaced all the floor pans, rebuilt the entire truck. I mean, we replaced, I built the whole motor in 2019. Like within 3 months, I did all of this work. And I wouldn't necessarily say it's complete right now. There's obviously things that all change. There's going to be more carbon fiber that goes on the truck, but it's probably as complete as it will ever be, just with subtle changes. Obviously, there might be some suspension changes that happen to make it more competitive, but nothing really crazy visually will happen to it. I don't really have any plans on going any different with the motor. It's pretty much where it's at. Same thing with the trans, unless the trans starts giving problems, which quite honestly I'll probably just buy another junkyard trans. With the power I'm making, there's no reason not to. And that's really, that's really about it with the truck. I have had some great companies step on board with this truck. Basically taking a chance with the little guy, There's not, realistically, I don't think there's another F100 that looks like this, that actually gets out and does what this truck is doing. Not saying that I'm the best racer or anything out there, but they saw what I was doing with the truck. They saw the presence that I had. They saw that I was active in the community, and they stepped up big time. Jeff with Munssey Speed and Design, he's we've gotten together on all the carbon fiber work. I've got Kyle with Outcast Auto Works. I can't ask for a better friend out of him. He's made everything great to deal with. I've got all of his suspension parts that he makes. And then Andrew Peterson, he's really coming up with a lot of great products for the F100 community, from big brake kits to the electric power steering for the Crown Vics, to basically being the provider for all the coilover stuff that a lot of the F100 guys are doing, at least in the Viking world. He's also got IRS stuff that he's working on to use the S550 IRS. And then I've got of course, Viking stepped on board and really took a chance on me through Andrew Peterson. Thanks to him on getting me hooked up with that. And then I've got some other smaller companies. Falcon Tire has been great to me on getting me tires for this thing. I had an incident 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks ago now, a week and a half ago, where the throttle stuck open on this at an event, and I laid 320 feet of skid mark down and wasted my front tires before I could get the truck set up or shut off. And I got a hold of Falcon, and they had no problems figuring out where a new set of tires were and getting them to me super fast. So, I couldn't thank them enough for making sure that I could get to all the events that I had planned for the last 3 weeks. And then I've got, Reed Robinson with ODB Off-Road. He's got me hooked up with the Restomod air conditioning that's in the truck. That's something I never touched bases on. I've got Finely Fabricated Customs. Jeremy over there, I went to school with him at Wyotech when I was 18, and we've always stayed in touch, and he built some awesome hot rods, and he stepped up wanting to make the aluminum cab mounts that I have. I use the cab as a chassis stiffener, and so he made the aluminum cab mounts. And then Lance Drager, he for the longest time still is, basically my Holly dealer with, he's with R&D Performance, or he owns R&D Performance, and I haven't had to ask for much, really. I never went out seeking sponsors. It was, I start talking to these guys, about buying products, and we just kind of become friends, and that's, what I think this community is all about. And then they always they've stepped up and got me into products at, sponsorship prices, and just really helped me out, and I couldn't ask for more out of any of them. TIC Performance also, they made me one of their dealers, and they've got me set up with their custom cam package and valve train, and I think I bought everything for this motor from them aside from my Holly stuff. And again, they didn't have to take a chance on me, but they did, and I couldn't ask more from them. The overall impressions with the truck are quite comical most of the times. I get a lot of people that they don't understand what carbon fiber is, so they think, I just wrecked the truck and didn't paint the front end. Until they actually see, especially up close, a lot of times pictures don't show, they just, it looks like a black fender and a black grill, Once they figure out kind of what carbon fiber is and the reason for it, people generally like it. I still get some people that think I need to paint it. It's never going to happen. Jeff, it's not going to happen ever, so don't ask. The motor, though, is the most controversial piece to this puzzle. The F100 community, overall, it's fairly accepted. I've got a lot of great friends in the F100 community, a lot of great sponsors in the F100 community. There's always the crazies out there. I've gotten death threats from people over the motor, just absolutely ridiculous stuff. And, it's as simple as, if it's not your taste, then who cares, I did this motor swap way prior to, Coyote swaps being anywhere near affordable. When I did this swap 5 years ago when I started it, doing a Coyote swap was still 15 grand. I had it running with the turbo, the first motor, I want to say for like $3,500. And so it just didn't make sense. And then, of course, I'm from Montana, so any bigger events that I can do are pretty much non-existent in my eyes. I'm not too fond of the Good Guys events at this point, and so I love LS Fest. Absolutely love it. I would never change the motor in this truck for that one simple fact. And so it's it's going to be LS forever. I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to put a Coyote in it because I have a bunch of people that hate it online. So it is what it is. If you don't like it, sorry about your luck.